Thank you for tuning in to the Ultimate Coach podcast, a companion to the transformative book, The Ultimate Coach, written by Amy Hardison and Alan D. Thompson. Each conversation is designed to be a powerful wake-up call, reminding us of what's possible for you and your life. So if you're on a journey to expand your state of being, this podcast is for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Coach podcast. I'm your host, Ipek Williamson, and I'm especially grateful to be sharing this space today with someone whose presence, care, and wisdom have deeply touched my life. My guest is Kathleen Putta. She's someone who doesn't seek the spotlight, and yet the light she brings into people's lives is unmistakable. Kathleen has spent decades teaching, coaching, and guiding with a heart wide open. Whether in a gymnasium, a yoga studio, or a one-on-one conversation, she leads with love and laughter. And today, she is known for her powerful gift of helping others create their personal documents, statements of being that serve as spiritual compasses. But long before that, she was a teacher, a single mother, a business owner, and a woman finding her own way through both chaos and clarity. I've had the honor of sitting with Kathleen in her document creation process, and I don't say this lightly, it changed my life. The way she listened, the way she gently invited parts of me forward that I didn't even know were ready to be spoken. It was sacred, and the document we created together continues to shape me to this day. So I'm thrilled to have you here for this conversation. And Kathleen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ipek. It's really great to be here.
So let's begin where it all started. What was little Kathleen like? What do you remember about yourself as a child? What lit you up? What called to you?
I remember just loving my family. And there were 6 kids in our family. I was the oldest girl. So I was always taking care of my brothers and sisters, and I absolutely loved being with them. And I only remember once really getting mad at one of my sisters because I just almost 4 years older than the next sister. And then I had 2 brothers, one older and one younger, but I just had such a wonderful relationship with all of them. And my dad, we lived on a farm, although my dad was not a farmer. We lived on a farm and we had a lot of physical activities. He had made a tetherball pole and we had basketball, we had shuffleboard, volleyball. We had all these things up on our farm. In the summer, he would mow. I lived in Indiana, so we had snow in the winter, but in the summer, he would mow a ball diamond in the field where the horses were and just kind of had every sport, which sort of prepared me for eventually being a physical education teacher. So, and I think what really lit me up was movement and playing and either music and singing, just as a, with my sisters, listening to records like the Beatles and singing on top of the records, or doing gymnastics, which, I would say mostly tumbling is what we were learning, how to do cartwheels and back bends and back walkovers and those kind of things.
Wow. And, it sounds like a very active childhood as a family.
Yeah, we had 60 acres on our farm. We rode our bikes everywhere. My brothers and sisters were big horseback riders. They would take their horses like I would take a bicycle, but I never really got into the horse. I had a horse run away with me when I was 5, and I think I was just I think I'll just keep something with wheels on the ground. So, yeah, we were outside a lot.
That's a lovely way to grow up. And you spent so many years in physical education, coaching, raising kids, navigating a full and complex life. And looking back, what were some of the practices or moments that kept you going during those intense seasons, intense parts of your life?
I can remember when I was probably 12, we had a lane and I would run down the lane and run back. It was like a third of a mile down, so maybe 2/3 of a mile round trip. And I would feel so much better. Like I made that connection that I feel good when I jog or run. You know, I don't even think jogging was a word back then, but when I run, like I like that. And the same thing with doing like a back bend. I loved the feeling of that, doing a cartwheel, like all of that. It really helped me. And I wouldn't have connected this then, but you know, I think I almost am like an ADD type person. Like that was never a diagnosis or anything, but that type of exercise, that, you know, getting that oxygen to that extent to my brain, being upside down, like all of that helped me to stay balanced. So I did connect, not what it was doing, but that I like that. I feel better when I do that. And then in college, I took a class called jogging and really learned the whole thing about the heart rate and connection to that and the blood flow to the brain. And I kind of understood, oh, well, that makes sense why I feel better when I exercise. And as I grew older, had more responsibilities. I ran a gymnastics and swim instructional business we would have 50 employees in the summer, about 25 during the school year. You know, it was really stressful. My ex-husband was always involved with Colleen, but he had her like 2 weekends a month. So I had her the bulk of the time. So I was a single parent most of the time, but I did have, you know, him would take her on the weekend, the 2 weekends a month. But that was very stressful. And exercise was one of the ways that I was able to, you know, maintain some sense of balance in my life.
That's beautiful because it works differently for everyone, right? And so for you, finding what works best for you, like things that trigger good hormones, good energy, blood flow, helps you, it seems like. So was it like whenever you came across something that you have to deal with, or an adversity or hardship, can we say that was your go-to, being physically active?
Well, and I think every day I always did something because I always knew I would feel better. And then I also got into like kind of the self-help thing around, I was pregnant, so it was 1983, and I read an article by Shirley MacLaine. And then I thought, wow. And she was talking about, you know, what you're thinking, you know, you've got to think good thoughts. But, you know, so I read all of her books, and then I got into Louise Hay. And then there was a channel in Phoenix called Abraham. And just, I did a lot of that kind of thing, but I was always doing exercise stuff too. You know, I bought a soft hydrobaric oxygen chamber, and I did that. Like, yeah, at that time I was waking up in the morning, like at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I would go in that thing for 3 or 4 hours, and, you know, I might listen to or I might watch a TV show on an iPad, or I might, you know, read a book, and then I would fall asleep, and then I would get out of that. But that was like increasing oxygen to my brain. You know, I did rocks, I did like the oils, I did all that kind of stuff, you know, and I think it was helpful, you know, like it helped keep me balanced, but I was always trying to feel more comfortable within my own skin. Yeah, I just never, I don't know, I just did not feel that, you know, there's always this inner nervousness. I just couldn't quite get to that place where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. This is okay. I always was looking for something else, reading another book, trying something new.
So is this the point where you maybe started to shift from external activities more inward, from movement toward maybe meditation, maybe sitting in silence, from action to reflection? I can see. What started to awaken in you when you started to be involved in these topics, in these people, learning from people? What was the impact on you?
Yeah. Like when I read Louise Hay and Shirley MacLaine, like I felt there was some truth. I just felt this makes sense to me. And then I did take up meditation. I took like transcendental meditation and, I was meditating just like 15 minutes a day and then maybe got up to a half hour a day, did that. And that honestly, I was like, whoa, this makes a difference when I do it. I wasn't that consistent with it. I would exercise before I would do that. But I was feeling this continual shift. And I could always feel like I'm a little bit more connected. But it was just like something, it just wasn't quite there, And then I know too, I remember having lunch with my daughter or maybe it was breakfast and saying, hey, I think I'm going to go on some kind of medication because I just don't feel that great. And I was going through menopause and, that was a piece of it. I did go on some hormone therapy at that time. But I said, I think I want to go on some kind of antidepressant or something, And Colleen's like, I don't get it, man. You just seem always happy to me. I mean, I don't think you need it. Like, so on the outside, I kind of think I did appear. I mean, I went to work every day. I was working with kids. And honestly, when I was absorbed in my work, I was fine. But I just never quite felt here. And so, I did that for a while. And I remember I was taking some type of hormone replacement therapy. I could not even get out of bed in the morning. And I'm a morning person. I love to get out of bed. So, like we were trying to regulate that and everything. And it just, it just didn't work very well for me. So it was just kind of searching, like what can help. And then I taught PE for 3 years and then had this gymnastics and swim business for 20 years. And after I sold that, I started teaching at a Catholic school. I would go to Mass every morning and they would say the rosary before Mass. I did that on a lot of mornings. And that helped. I mean, that connected me, which was so interesting. And, and actually that was before I did the hormone replacement therapy. Then I went into that and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't make it to 6:30 a.m. Mass at that time. It was just too much. So, yeah.
Well, then I want to get to where you met with Steve Hardison. And then I know you worked with him. So in all these search for the meaning and like feeling better, how did that come to working with Steve and what was the impact of that in you?
Yeah, so I taught at this Catholic school for 16 years and retired in 2016. My first grandchild was born in 2014 and then a set of twins in 2016. So because I was retired, I watched the twins 3 days a week. So that, kind of shifted. Like I really felt this big shift of like never having loved like that before. Like that feeling of love, like when I first met my husband, that feeling of love, that big feeling. It was like, wow, this is so awesome. And then I was still doing yoga, doing meditation. I was into Abraham Hicks, listening to a lot of their videos. I went on one of their cruises. And then I ran into a podcast by Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School on anxiety. And I was like, okay, I kind of think this is what I have, and I listened to her thing. And then I bought her, she had a little course you could buy on it. I did that course. And I was like, oh man, like in 2 weeks, I was like totally different. And it was all about your thoughts. It was all about, and I'd been doing affirmations. I'd been doing thoughts and before, but this was different. This was really like looking at a thought and really being able to shift it, So that was good. And then I thought, I think I'll just do a year-long course. So I did that. And while I was doing some peer coaching with Mick Scott, who's in the Facebook group, he said to me, well, who do you want to be in this situation? And immediately I go, oh my gosh, that just totally changed the way I was thinking, So after the session, I had to give him a little like how I thought he did. And I said, well, that one question, it was so great. I love that. That was totally a shifter for me. And he goes, well, if you'd like it. And, and then reaches over and he pulls and he goes, you might want to buy this book. I go, oh, well, tell me, So I did. I bought it that day. It was on a Tuesday. and it was going to come on Thursday. And I went and I put it on my Audible. I listened to it before I'd even gotten it. Then I read it, and of course, in the book, it talks about reading it more than once. So I read it a few times and I was just like, man, I would love to coach with this guy, but I don't even know where he's at. Like, there's no way, because I'm watching my grandkids, I can't fly somewhere, And then I thought, I wonder, God, how, it doesn't really tell where he's at in the book, and it mentions Mesa, Tempe, all these places. And I thought, oh my God, I bet I could Google him, and of course, he's got a big website and everything. He lives like 20 minutes from my house. And I was like, wow, that would be so amazing. And so then I went into this big thing of like, all right, I'd already made my own document. I did my own document, but I wanted to learn that self-forgiveness process. I read the book looking for it. It's got to be in here. I know they say it's not in here, but it's got to be in here somewhere, because how do you do it without it? So I just did my own document. Then I thought, I'm going to go to the Phoenix Zoo and I'm going to tape my document in front of the tigers, because in the book it says, if you're going to coach with Steve, you want to be like a tiger, or like he's the tiger in the jungle. If you read the book, it's like a tiger in the zoo. So I went and I get in there. Well, they don't let you take tripods in there. So I have to go take my tripod back. And when I did that, I left my phone in the car. So then I get to the tiger place and I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have my phone. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to do it today. And I'm walking out. And then, of course, I've got everything in the book going in your mind. Come on, you can do this. You can figure out a way to do this. So I go back in and there's a woman there. She's got a little baby and she's pregnant. And I said, would you ever take take this video of me? And she goes, oh yeah, sure. So I take my video. It's about 2 minutes, and like I was so self-conscious, there's people around kind of looking but anyway, I did it in front of the tiger, and the tiger was there for a while, and the tiger got up and moved under a rock. And so, I thought, okay, I'm going to send this to him. And I was going to try and send it at 11:11, because I don't know, I think somebody sent him something in the book at 11:11. So I was going through all this, because and plus I didn't know how long it would take to get in. Like it might take over a year, and then I might have like all this homework and all this, stuff to do. So yeah, I just sent him an email and added that little video on it, which I don't even think the video worked. I think it was only a picture of me with this lion or tiger. Anyway, I sent it in the morning, and like within 3 hours, I'm picking up my phone and it says Amy and Steve Hardison on it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is him, So, I have this conversation with them, and he says to me, he goes, so what do you want to, if you want to coach, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to do a full year? I go, oh yeah, I want to do a full year, but, like my husband he's okay with like the 10 hours, but a whole year, that's just not going to happen. So he goes, oh yeah, the chocolate chip cookie. I go, yeah, that would be great. So, he gave me all the details, how to sign it and send the money, all that. And then, then he called me whenever everything went through, and we signed up, set up our, 5 sessions. So, but after I did 5, then, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do more. So then I did another 10. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the whole year. I'm going to do. So then I signed up for 30 after that and completed the year. But yeah, it's really been like, I just like kind of the hardest thing I've done in the aspect of not physically. I've done many physically really hard things, but I think to put that kind of money forward was really difficult for me. And to go inward is very difficult for me at that in that way. And I think like the document for me, which I absolutely love. I remember the first time he said, I want you to start saying it to people, like just to 2 or 3 people. And then he told me the story about the woman who did 20 people and, when he told her to go. And so I was like, okay, I need to do at least 20, so I have these high expectations of myself. But I found it so hard. And I heard Daryl Sweeney, he talked on one of the document creation videos, and he talked about the intimacy of the document. And it was like, oh my gosh, that's why it's so hard for me, because like when you go through that self-forgiveness process and you pull out the depth of yourself, it's like very deep, and you're sharing it. Like if I share with people on the Ultimate Coach, they all get it. Like that's like for me an easy share. But if I share like with the people I lived with, you know, like it was like, this is hard. This is like, you know, pouring my soul out. And I think that was the work that I needed to do to be able to move forward and to learn how to love myself, because it's that in-depthness that is so unique in every person. It is so special. And if you don't hit that, like when you hit that, you just know it. And it's uncomfortable, but it's so good.
Powerful, right? Powerful. And so obviously when we talk about personal transformation, it's not a straight line. So throughout this process of working with Steve Hardison and like practicing self-forgiveness and going deep within you, what surprised you most about your journey of growth?
I think, what comes into my mind is when I wrote about this on the Facebook page, and I called it the red flag, where I was having a session with Steve, and I noticed when I got there, he wrong flag. Like my flag this is a picture of my flag. It's orange. And he had a lion up there that looked very much like that. It was a flag, but it was gray. And I was going to text him, but I didn't want to bother him. It was the week after the Ultimate Coach event, and he had just gone to the Grand Canyon, like the night before. He got in like at 2 a.m, and I'm seeing him at 10. And then I thought, I'll just tell him at my session. Well, then the session came, and of course I didn't, want to bother him, And so I, flew in my mind a few times, but I ignored it. And then I'm leaving, and I ignored it. And then finally I sent him a text just wondering. And so I was going there that night because I was introducing Mick Scott to him. And when I got there, I said, oh, I see my flag's up. And he just, he'd never yelled at me. He just said, of course your flag's up. This is the big problem with you. You've got so much in there that I have to work through in your brain that you do not hear me. Do you know what I would have done if you would have told me your flag wasn't up? And I said, I don't put it up. And he goes, yes. It was the whole realization that, I'm trying not to make his life any more difficult, but he's like, hey, like I always tell you, I'll put your flag up. Please tell me so I get to do my end of the deal. I wasn't even giving him the opportunity. And I was assuming that he would appreciate me not, asking him to do his job, what he said what he brags about that he always does, So I think at that point, that was maybe it was in February. And so I was, I had February, March, April, I had like 3 more months left. And I felt like I'd come such a long way. And I was just like, oh man, that's kind of being 101, just say it, especially to someone like Steve. He's either going to say, I can't do it, or he's going to say, let's go, let's do it. If you can't say it to him, who do you say it to? So, and part of my thing is asking for what I want. What do I want? Being upfront, just saying it. And one of the things that has come to me about that is, I know I'm fresher in the morning because I do my meditation in the morning. And so anything I have to ask for or anything I have to say no about, because that was another one of his things, you are never going to be at peace with your life until you can say no, because you like to say yes. And, and then you're people-pleasing people. You have to learn to say no, and you have to ask for what you want. So I try and do that, ideally before 11 o'clock, but definitely before noon in the morning. go for it. Go for it when you're fresh. And then if anybody, like they're trying to convince you to like, I'm fresher to say no, no again, no again. So.
Yeah, getting to know yourself, learn about yourself, right? It's a journey, a lifelong journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the coaching is like, I'm so much more appreciative of myself, and all the times, like, just last weekend I was just kind of in a funk. I was very tired. I had come off 2 weeks. My son-in-law was out of the country for 2 weeks. And so I was doing a lot more helping with the grandkids. And he got back Friday night, and I kind of overscheduled myself on the weekend. Like I knew I probably just needed total downtime there, but, and then I just did not feel great. And so I just had to like slow down and say no and reboot myself. But like, I can understand that about myself now. Like, I know how to get out of it. Whereas before, just no matter what I did, I couldn't quite get out of it. And I think that's the difference, that the coaching, being around people in the Ultimate Coach group that are very loving, like you don't have a better audience than someone in the Ultimate Coach group. People are trying to listen for your golden nugget. They're really practicing that. And it makes a difference for me in being able to relax.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you help people create their documents, their I am statements. But I see that so much more than a few powerful statements. For those who don't know what a document is, how would you describe what it really represents?
I think it represents that place that you have to go where you figured out who you really want to be, where you want to come from. Like, it's this set of statements. And the reason for me it's so powerful is because you've taken all your non-useful thoughts, and from self-forgiveness, you transform those. And so the statements are not just, I am lazy, oh, I have lots of energy. You're not just flipping it. It's coming from the divine, or it's coming from God, however you want to put that. And then those statements, and I think that's why they're so intimate, is because it's from the true you, who you are. And so that becomes where you are living from. And I think too, it's not like, I don't feel pressure about it. Like when I had affirmations, there was more of a pressure, but this is like, this is like the best I can come from today. I'm going to do the best I can. And this is where I'm coming from. And I feel everyone, like in the movement, that they're all kind of around you like that. Yeah, we get it. We all get it. We're all trying to come from there. So
we are all work in progress, right?
Yes. Beautifully said. Beautifully said, Ipek.
And as someone who's gone through that creating the document process with you, I want to say this from my heart. Working with you to create my document wasn't just an experience, it was a turning point for me. The tenderness, the way you welcomed every part of me, it's something I still return to again and again. I can honestly say I'm being shaped by the document you helped me create. And what is it about this work that makes it so intimate and sacred, you think? Because you are really good at bringing stories and creating an intimate space and making the other one, in this case, it was me, feel so comfortable to go through that process. So what is the gift you have about helping people create their documents? Because I also watched the other 4-part little course that you and Dave Orton created about it. It was really amazing too. So what is your secret? How you're amazing at that, and what is your secret for that?
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. I think I just, as I'm sitting with the person, I just want to send them love. And I just feel like they're every person. And I take this from me. Like if I really look within me, like I'm so unique. And every person has that uniqueness. And if they can love that little piece of them that is so unique, or a really big piece of them, like their life will be so wonderful. Like they don't have to be anything. They don't really have to learn anything. They just have to know that like they're on this earth because they fill this little space, this space that no one else can fill. And they make such a big difference. And honestly, if I can help a person to feel that or understand that, and I just feel very good about it. And I think all I really do is sit there and just try to be loving and just send as much love as I can, and then listen to the beauty they are, because everyone has such beauty. Whether you think you've judged somebody or you don't like what you did, it's really all beautiful on this path that we're taking in life. And there's so much goodness out there. I just, that's an important part of my day. And when I'm in document creation, it's like an hour and a half just to see the goodness in somebody. Like it's just, that's what I just love about it.
And exactly what you made me feel while we worked on it together. So you're a special person for me, really.
Well, thank you, Ipek.
And time and time again, I heard you speak about the power of noticing thoughts and meeting them with lightness. How did you think you learned to respond to your own inner dialogue in such a loving way, in such a beautiful, sweet way?
Yeah, I think some of it may have been because Steve would share his thoughts, like you think someone like that is perfect, and you realize, it's really awareness. Like the more you can see that negative thought that comes in and you handle it right away, it just makes a difference. So there's I don't even see anything as a negative thought, really. It's a thought, and I'm going to love it. I'm going to maybe take it through self-forgiveness if I feel there's a charge on it. But I am so proud of myself, for seeing it, wow, because there were so many years I never looked at a thought at a time. It was just everything. It was just messy. It was just very messy. And now I can see it's just, oh, wow, that's okay. That's going there. Let's look at it. And I do a lot of preventative too, just before I go somewhere, just sending love, getting in the car, loving anything I see, whether it's a person walking on the street or a tree or the wall, just being in that state of love.
Well, love and connection and compassion, all beautiful things. And when it comes to your own being these days, who are you choosing to be, and what are you creating from that space?
I think, for me, what I'm really working on is being a better partner with my husband, a better parent to my daughter and my son-in-law. I feel like I'm a pretty good grandmother. I work on that every day. But I think one time, Steve is walking, it's at the end of the session, he's walking out the door, and we were talking about my husband, Jack, and, he turns around and he's got his glasses on and his eyes are just super blue, and he goes, "Jack is your biggest asset." And then he turns around, shuts the door, and, he's out of there. That has always stayed with me, and I'm really working on that, really seeing that. I'm doing my document with, I'm flowing with the grace of God as I move through my life within me and within Jack. So adding that to the end of it. just looking at how lucky I am, really seeing the gold in this person who's been with me for a very, very long time, since 1991. We were dating, 1995, we got married. And he is really an incredible partner. And I just have not given I would say maybe respect, the honor that he truly deserves. And so that's probably my biggest work that I'm doing right now.
That's so sweet. So sweet. Thank you for sharing. And now it's time for my signature question. On the Ultimate Coach book, as you know, there are questions at the before you begin section of the book, and also some questions at the back cover. From out of those questions, which one is resonating the most with you at this point in your life, and why?
It's who am I being as a partner, parent, and I've shifted it to grandparent, but who am I being as a partner really is the one, because I'm really working on creating my relationship with Jack, and that would be the most important to me.
It is recreating every single day, right? We wake up and we start creating ourselves and our loved ones, and being intentional in doing that, it makes huge difference, of course.
Yeah, and just that question, anywhere that I am, who am I being, as a driver? Who am I being as a wife? Who am I being as someone helping in the classroom? It's just immediate shift. I think it's so brilliant. If you're trying to increase your vibration or how you are thinking or what you are doing, that question is so beautiful. And I will read those questions before I read another book, because it puts me in that state of, openness and wanting to get the most out of it.
Well, I see that as a very powerful self-inquiry, right? Doing that inquiry and asking those questions honestly to oneself makes a huge difference in how you show up in life for yourself and for everyone around you. So I love all those questions, and I read them very often too.
Yeah.
So now we get to the rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And the first one is, what is your daily practice to create a balanced life?
So I get up very early, and I usually wake up around 3:30 and I read something. Like right now I'm reading Neville Goddard, and I read that for about an hour, and then I'm doing this deep dive into Joe Dispenza. And so I do one of his meditations, but before I do it, I have it all hooked together. I do my document, and right now I'm doing it to the song, The Lion King. And then I have one of his pineal gland meditations. It's from the Noble Walk or something like that. So I have just that. It's like a 15-minute thing on the pineal gland. And then I go into one of his meditations. So that, when I hook them all together like that, it just gives me no way out a little bit. It's a very efficient way to start out my morning. And then, usually get up, take a shower, eat breakfast, do the cold plunge, and then get dressed, and I'm off to go. So.
Wow. You even do the cold plunge, huh?
I do. This is my 6th year I've been doing it. So, yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Good for you. Okay. The second question was going to be morning routine, but you already said it. What is your favorite book? Let's talk about that.
I'd say my favorite book is The Gentle Art of Blessing by Pierre. He just died too. Paderborn, Gentle Art of Blessing.
I know. He just recently passed away. Yes.
Yeah. And I love it because it's so simple. It's just bless people. It's really a great way to get into gratitude, I think, if I'm like if my mind gets off track a little bit, just to start blessing people. And when I was in this little funk this weekend, I started reading some parts out of that. And, there's also a whole chapter on blessing yourself. And I'd kind of forgotten about that, So like that was where, I really started, was blessing myself. And that was really helpful. But yeah, I love that.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, because you are an active person, do you listen to music while working out or doing any physical activity? And if so, what kind of music is your go-to?
Yeah, I'm in a weight training class, so there's always music there, but I have no control over that. Normally, I do, like when I do yoga, I do it in silence, and not because, I don't know, I prefer quiet to music. And if I was listening to music, it'd be, I like Enya, like that kind of music, or I like Broadway show tunes, like that you can kind of sing along with. And I don't know if that's from being a teacher. And, I played a lot of music during PE, and you've got a lot of activity going, and it gets pretty crazy. But yeah, I just like quiet.
Yeah, I love that kind of music, meditation, background music. Enya, Kenny G, those are my favorites too. Kathleen, thank you. Thank you so much for your gentleness, your wisdom, your laughter, your love. You've given us a living example of what it means to grow with grace. For those listening who feel called to create their own document or simply want to connect more deeply with Kathleen's work, we will share her website link in the episode notes. And thank you to you, our listeners. We hope this episode has reminded you of something essential, that it's never too late to listen inward, to speak your truth, and to create the life you're meant to live. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for being with me today and for everything you shared with us. Until next time, thank you for being with us on the Ultimate Coach Podcast.
Thank you, Ipek. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today. If there's someone you know who could benefit from this conversation, please share this episode with them. Also, check out our website, beingmovement.com. You'll find valuable resources and links to connect to an engaging and wonderfully supportive community. Together, we can inspire and support each other on the path to a greater understanding of being. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.